Hello again, everybody, and as my wait for a lockdown haircut continues, I am pleased again to be joined today by another good friend, Colin Mitchell, partner at McCartan Turkington Breen MTB Solicitors, Hospitality Ulster's essential service provider for everything legal and our go-to for any legal inquiries. Colin, good morning. How you doing?
I'm very well, Joe. You're looking
It's
lovely.
it's good to see you again. The sort of want to talk to you today. It's great to have you on. Obviously, with the current sort of regulations and as the hospitality industry reopens, a lot of businesses have had to innovate in order to provide spaces for their customers to enjoy that kind of hospitality experience safely. I want to just kind of talk about a few of them. Obviously, there's a lot of questions about outdoor spaces in particular. There's a few kind of main ways to do that, and I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts and your advice on it. Something a lot of people have been talking about, first of all, is actually the grant of a new license. Could you give me your thoughts on a hospitality business looking grant of a new license?
Yeah, traditionally, if you were looking for a substantial outside space, which would be a substantial increase on the current licensed area that you enjoy, you would have to go to court for a full grant of a new license, and that would involve architects, court, possibly barristers, certainly adverts and papers, opportunity for objectors, and a very formal sort of process. Now, in the current environment, I hope I'm not coming across you, Joe. Just hold your hand up if I'm going to interrupt your food. But
Not at all. No, the people are here to hear you.
in the current environment, the courts are not running or sitting at the minute. There are some remote hearings being taken place, and the courts will try and work with parties. But a new grant in the current environment, it'd be very hard for me to advise clients A, how much that is ultimately going to cost, and B, what the court is going to bring to the party in terms of being able to sit and hear it and everything else. So yes, if there's an emergency application for a new grant for other issues, that may well be possible to do. However, as we go through this interview, you may find there's better options available to you to try and get yourself some outside space if you don't already have it.
So quite prohibitive. The one that sounds like it would be the most straightforward is quite often the most prohibitive. Obviously, another one that we're getting a lot of inquiries about in the Hospitality Ulster is the alteration of an existing license. Would that potentially be a route for using outside space?
It certainly is. I mean, this is, if you like, this sort of, you like called the baby brother of the new grant. Traditionally, an alteration is for lesser projects. There's various things around it, but just for the purposes of this, and as a rule of thumb, you might say if you're looking to increase your current licensed area by between 10 and 15%, you would apply to the court for an alteration application. It doesn't have to be advertised. Objections to it are very difficult, but it's still a formal court process. There's still architects involved. You still need a solicitor involved to draft up the notices and everything else. Now, I am aware the courts probably would treat these with a bit more of emergency element to it than new grants. But again, it's far from perfect because again, it's limited increases. It's also permanent, and you may not want permanent. And this may just be something you're trying to do. You also need to own areas and things like that as well. There's title issues, so there's a bit of legal work involved. There's cost of architects, there's cost of a court stamp, which I don't think is being waived yet. So whilst yes, at first blush, an alteration application may make some sense, I'm sure the court will try and work with us on it. Again, I think you'll find it's still little bit complicated for what's required right now for licensees.
What's your knowledge of sort of timelines for those kinds of applications?
Right.
Obviously, there's been issues around court sitting. How long would it take, for talk's sake, to do
Well,
that?
traditionally, an alteration application, you need to give the court and the police at least 3 weeks' notice of it, okay, before the court hearing. Now, times for that can be abridged. What I mean by that is that the court can sort of say, no, okay, we'll give you less of a time because it's an emergency and things like that, especially if the police are consenting. But again, right now, where premises are looking for advice right now on what they can do, until you actually test that process and test what leeway judges are prepared to give you, then it's hard for us to advise exactly what that looks like in practice. Secondly, you are going to need a plan. You are going to need an architect to be able to sign off on the plan, sign off on the plan permission, building control, etc. aren't required. And that is going to take a few days or a week or a couple weeks for an architect to put that all together as well. So far from perfect and very hard for me to advise exactly what that would look like in person to a client.
And obviously the permanence of that being an issue currently whenever many businesses are looking for a sort of short to medium term fix. So grant of new license, alteration of an existing license, possibly quite prohibitive to business owners. There's been a lot of talk as the industry reopened from the 3rd of July about utilising pavement cafe legislation, and that would be for sort of spaces in the public realm. What's your understanding and your advice around pavement cafe legislation?
Okay. Now, pavement cafe legislation is something that's sort of been sat in the background for a number of years, and I think I said earlier on, Joel, it's sometimes crises do bring along these solutions, and these have now been brought to the fore. They're very useful. First of all, what it allows you to do is to extend your licensed area over areas that, as you say, are in the public realm. I'll get to that in a second, but effectively, the courts have no role in this. Okay, you apply to your council. When they grant you a pavement cafe license, your license extends out to the extent of what they have allowed in the first place. So you're immediately getting rid of a lot of technicalities, a lot of processes, and everything else in the middle of all that. So very attractive, generally speaking, not just in this current situation, but going forward. Now, the public realm, what it's defined as is areas to which the public have access and to which they cannot be charged. And people I would take a fairly relaxed attitude to what in the public realm means. I know some people are saying, well, I own the land, but that's not necessarily the point. The point is, for example, a lot of these pavement cafe licenses will be actually for pavement, so you may own the bit of land out the front of your licensed premises, but public walk over that all the time. They have access to it. It may well be adopted by the DRD and things like that. So that would be in the public realm, and what I think you're probably better off looking at what definitely wouldn't be in the public realm. That might be a yard at the back of your premises and things like that. I think it's much more obvious what isn't covered than what is. And I think a bit of common sense when you're looking at the area around you and looking at the flows of people around your premises as to what will be there. And I think you'll find it's a lot wider than maybe initially you think. And the process for applying is straight to the council. You will need a plan. Now, the councils have made it quite clear they need to see a plan of the area that you're going to have the pavement license to cover. You might be able to do it yourself. You might get an architect to do it. The architect will do a very quick thing on. So just give the council something to look at, okay? The guidance on it, the best guidance I've seen is in Belfast City Council. So if your local council doesn't have guidance on the website, always look at what Belfast City Council are doing. And it's hard for them to give you exact what will and won't allow because there's so much still up in the air that's not to do with them. And I won't get into what I would say to you is, look, if you're going to do a pavement cafe license and you're going to put something in, think about it. Look at where people are walking to and from around your premises. If you put your tables out, is there still plenty of room in the pavement? Can you get a wheelchair past it? Anything of those sort of nature. When you're putting tables out there, lots of room for people to move freely around the area, that sort of thing. I think a bit of common sense will allow people to see exactly what it looks like and exactly what it should be. Once you've got that, get your application into the council, and once your application is into the councils have said that they won't look too closely at what you're doing in the meantime. Okay, I think they're much more concerned with people doing it without putting an application in, and they're going to try and speed those through as fast as they can. Some councils are charging, some are.
Hospitality Ulster have engaged with all of the councils just to see what their stance on pavement cafe applications are in terms of what they're doing. A number have withheld charges, and we'll make that information available along with this video. I guess to segue into another temporary solution, which may be more beneficial, is the Article 30, better known as the occasional license. And that's something that's been used for a long time before this for things like charity events, Christmas markets and such. Is there a way to harness the occasional license for the current problems that businesses are facing?
Potentially, we're very keen on this in Hospitality Ulster, the steering group, and everything else. What an occasional license, generally speaking, has been very restrictive in its use. What it is a license that allows you to run your bar on unlicensed premises. Okay. And traditionally, as you have said, you might be providing the bar at a charity dinner or at a sporting event or something like that, and that's something people have done. Technically speaking, you can have an occasional license at your own building as long as it is on license on parts of that building or parts of your footprint, if you like, that aren't currently licensed. And that is technically allowed to be done. The difficulty in using occasional licenses, if you like, start selling, to apply to the court for the occasional license, to start selling drink in, say, your backyard or your outside area that you can identify, is that occasional licenses are by their nature meant to be occasional and meant to be for an event. So what Hospitality Ulster have done is that they have approached the courts and they have said, look, given this unique situation that we're in, do you think that Hospitality Ulster could, if you like, be the sponsors of an event at licensed premises that want to apply for an occasional license, and that could be the event, and that would satisfy the criteria for occasional license? And I understand that can possibly receive. The other thing about an occasional license is it's meant to be occasional, and obviously, if you're going to run a licensed premises day after day after day, that's not necessarily occasional. However, it's in the gift, hopefully, of the courts to use their discretion in this environment to allow that. For an occasional license, you can apply for 13 at any one time, and each occasional license can be for 6 days. So you could apply all at once to the court for several weeks, and that might be the way to do it. Rather than apply for the whole way through, it might be say, look, apply for 4 weeks now. Let's see where the wet pubs are in a month's time. Yeah. I can always go back to court again. Now, what you will need to do, now it's quite, in terms of timescales for occasional licenses, they're quite short. It's quite a short time period of a week, 2 weeks, but you can abridge time, and it's always abridged, okay. But you will need to, before you do this, make sure you've approached your local police, and they got them that they will consent to it, okay, and the council, but the council to consent to it as well, but particularly the police. And you want to put your application into the court with that consent already with it, okay? Because that will get you past all sorts of administrative hurdles if you do that. Now, each individual court has to come back and see what to do about this. We think we understand what's going to happen, okay? You might find people who do apply for this may have some issues with local courts and things like that. Hopefully not, but if you do, get on to me, get on to Hospitality Ulster, or we'll advise you right through it. You do not need a solicitor to do this application, okay? And that's one of the benefits. You do not need an architect either.
It's a sort of varying degrees of permanence across a number of solutions there.
Yep.
You have for a long time in MTB, solicitors have for a long time been Hospitality Ulster's go-to in terms of legal inquiries, and obviously the legal helpline is there for members. You can get in touch with MTB on 028 9032 9801, or just check Hospitality Ulster's website for full information. You also cover pretty much anything relating to the industry, Colin. You've also got employment law, anything else. So you're on hand if Hospitality Ulster members would like to talk to you about their individual circumstances.
Absolutely, and I do it all the time. And my employment partner John McShane, his assistant Judy Hamilton, they also do the employment stuff. They've been involved heavily the furlough scheme advising members as well and things like that. And I have to say, members do phone me up all the time for looking for quick advice, and I welcome it. I like helping members out, but not only that, I learn something every time I have a phone call, and it's just nice to touch base with the industry and everything else. And I also would say, Joel, that I've been out around some of my clients' premises helping to support them over the last weekend, and I think the industry, from what I've seen, is doing a terrific job in responding to the challenges, providing a service within the current guidelines to the public.
Those Article 30 occasional licensing forms and a full legal guide is available on the Hospitality Ulster website, provided by McCartan Turkington Breen Solicitors. So Colin, look, plenty to think about there, and hopefully members will get in touch and discuss their individual circumstances. But for now, I just want to thank you very much for your time. Good to see you again. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel, and a haircut's in order, son.
You're telling me. Thanks, Colin.